Good afternoon. Welcome to Stay Tuned. Thanks for tuning back in. Hi to all our new viewers out there in our new towns. On today's show, we have a very special guest, Don Conoscenti, who is a singer-songwriter, incredible guitar player. He's come up to Maine for, I believe, the second time. I'm not sure if he's been here more than that, but this is the second time in Maine. He just recently played at the Kennybunk Coffee House, and he agreed to sit down and talk with us. So we're going to get to know him, listen to some of his music, and whatever. So hope you like it. Hope you like him, and let's introduce him. Don, welcome to the show. Welcome
Good
back
to
to
be here.
Maine.
Yeah, second time.
So that is true. All right. I was wondering about that.
Well, even if it wasn't, I would agree with you.
You'd agree
Make
with
it
it
look
just to
good.
make
Yeah.
me look like I know what I'm talking about. I appreciate that. See,
Yeah.
that's what we love with our guests. Not only they promote the host. I love that.
We support you
Thank
in
you.
your endeavors, your big show business push.
That's right. You know, I'm
with
working.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And likewise. And that's why we're here to.
So I think we're here just to kind of really talk about our hairdresser. Really, that's what I was
That's right.
told.
I'm Cy
anyway.
Sterling. Welcome. I'm not only the president.
I'm a customer.
That's right. This is the Cy Sterling failed attempt at. But anyway, let's talk about your hairdo. Actually, you brought it up. So, how'd you decide to go with a bald look, or is it a God-given thing?
No, well, I was born bald actually,
Yeah.
as I recall. And what happened was I was hanging out with some friends and playing drums in this band in D.C., SGGL. There are a lot of initials, but one of the guys and another good friend of ours, a great songwriter named Tom Kimmel, and my buddy Michael Lilly, they went to Nepal kayaking, came back with their head shaved. Now, I've been thinking about it for a while, but I wasn't ready to take the leap. When they came back and they had their head shaved, we were doing a show in Washington, D.C., and we were getting ready to go on stage, and he was like, "You gonna do it? You gonna do it?" I said, "You know what? Right now, if you'll help me, right now, we do it this moment, I will shave my head." And sure enough, we had like 20 minutes before we went on, and we went down in the dressing room and
stuck.
shaved my head.
And it's stuck ever since.
Yeah.
Oh, looking
I've
good.
been keeping up with it.
So everyone at the band at that point was bald.
No, just me and Michael.
Oh, all right.
And
So
Michael didn't
He
keep
didn't stick with
shaving
it?
it.
No.
No, he let it go. Man.
must be the drummer thing then. Not that I play drums either, but
But you could now.
I
that you
could
have
now
your
that
head
I
shaved.
have my head
You
shaved.
could
Actually, I didn't
definitely.
actually ever have any musical talent, but
You got
It's-
tons
it's-
now. You don't even know it. And that's incredible.
well, that's interesting. That's an interesting story. I was just wondering. Mine isn't that interesting, but we won't get into that. It's about you. The show's about you.
Doesn't have to be. I mean, I'm happy to interview you.
Oh, thank you. All right, that would be the first, and I wouldn't be that exciting. I don't think. Well, let's continue with you.
Okay.
Let's stay with you and see
Whatever.
where it goes. You know, you may not be that exciting either.
Right, and we'll switch. That'd be good.
I wanted to talk about. I have a couple of songs I want you to play today, if you don't mind, and I wanted to talk about your. You come from the south, right? Southwest. I guess.
Southwest, yeah, desert region.
Is that where you were born? Is that where you were brought up, or how did you end up?
Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're a city boy, and
But always wanted to live out, in the mountains and the forests. And when I was 10 years, the big trip for us in Chicago, and we were limited in means, our family, big family, and the biggest trip would be to go to Wisconsin,
really.
which seemed like a big adventure to me. But somewhere around the age of 10, we went to New Mexico, to Las Cruces, and I had a great uncle who worked with the military, and he worked out at White Sands Missile Base. So we spent like a week in Las Cruces, running all around the desert and out White Sands, and I was blown away. I never
Really?
recovered from that. Tarantulas and roadrunners and rattlesnakes, and it was.
So
great.
it just got under your skin, and you decided to.
It seemed like the rest of my life was, always
striving
this,
to go back.
Yeah, in the back of my mind, it was always percolating, and then it just came more and more to the front of my desire until eventually I just did it. And I lived all over the country, in the
Right.
meantime, including New England. But
Really?
lived in Vermont for 6
Oh,
years.
yeah. You have relatives out there, right? Is that true?
In Vermont?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a brother who told me, back in the mid-'70s, come, you'll love this place. And I came up and I stayed for 6 years. And he's still there this whole time with a couple of detours. And my father just moved up there
From?
From Chicago.
So
Yeah.
he's been in Chicago.
From the
this whole
street he's
time.
lived on his whole life.
Really?
Yeah. It was a big
Wow.
move for him.
How's he liking that?
He loves it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
He
big
loves it.
change.
My brother opened a fantastic restaurant, and
Oh,
my
yeah.
dad helps in the restaurant, so
Nice.
they're having a big
Oh,
time.
that's cool. It's always good for you as a starving musician to go back home then, huh?
Doesn't hurt. I stop in Montpelier. I eat well, you know. I go down
That's
to
a beautiful area. I
Conoscenti's.
love that.
That's
yeah.
great.
Is that the name? That's the name
Yeah,
of the
it's called
restaurant?
They say Conoscenti. They lean a little more into
Yeah.
the ethnic value of the name.
What is the ethnic value of Conoscenti?
Well, you know, I hear it pronounced Conoscenti or Conoscenti, and it means, I've heard a few different things, but one who knows, or one who knows many, or one with many friends, or one who maybe worked for the mafia. You know, it has some of those kind of.
How do you pronounce it? How do you pronounce your last name?
I try to make it easy on people.
Yeah.
And I just say Conoscenti.
Yeah, that's what I always say. So I know.
It's hard enough.
Yeah.
It's hard enough.
Cognizant, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting about your whole growing up. The reason I brought that question up is about the Southwest and stuff. It really influences a lot of your songwriting. I mean,
A lot.
Very a lot.
Mhm.
And one of the songs I wanted Ashley to play, and actually I'm not really sure now that I think about it. That song, What Else Could I Do?
Mhm.
Now, is that about, who's that about?
It's a composite
Uh-huh.
story, but it's really inspired by Crazy Horse.
Right.
But it also incorporates like Geronimo and Cochise. So to me, running around out in that part of the world, in the Dakotas, in Montana and Colorado, but also in Arizona and Texas, and
Right.
so it ties in I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma too. And these guys, you know, the Lakota people having migrated west from the upper Midwest, and then the Apache people being moved, but also being fairly mobile from northern Mexico up into Colorado. And there's even some hot springs near where I live in southern Colorado where Cochise and Geronimo frequented often. I was just there a couple weeks ago. I try to stop every chance I get. So there's a lot of common ground, so I put it all together. But I was reading Crazy Horse's biography, and I was traveling a lot in that area and looking for those places that I had been reading about or heard about, and going to the Badlands, and you know, going to Julesburg in Colorado and near where he was born, and also trying to walk in the footsteps of Geronimo, and going to visit his gravesite in Oklahoma at Fort Sill. So those guys, those two particular people, they didn't relent much, and they didn't sign
No.
too many documents, and other Indian chiefs were forced to or chose to,
To
you know,
save their people.
to save their people. Some of them to save their butts
Right.
also. So there's a
Well,
mix
didn't
there.
let's see, didn't Crazy Horse have? I'm trying to remember his friend's name. I just read something about that. That's the reason I can't remember what his friend's name was. I read this book by Stephen Ambrose. It was called Comrades, and one of the sections in the book was about Crazy Horse, and it was talking basically how these two like grew up together and were best friends. And how his friend, when it came down to like surrendering, he was saying, "Listen, we got to do this." You know, even though they went through all this stuff, they would,
Right.
You know, and he
I
was.
think that's a young man afraid of his horse. Does that sound? Does that ring a
It
bell?
doesn't sound familiar, but
Okay.
I can't remember.
But I know what you're talking about.
Uh,
I know what you're
and
talking
you know,
about.
and he kind of did. He ended up surrendering, didn't he?
Yes,
And then he got killed, right? It was like as soon as he surrendered, they killed him.
he got the shaft.
Yeah.
And
So I mean,
not
like
long after.
So many, right?
Not long after. He ended up fleeing,
Mm.
and then he was talked into returning. And when he returned, that's when things went bad,
Mm.
and he was killed in a scuffle.
And I think one of his friends, I think his friend actually talked him into returning. If I remember that correctly, but anyway.
His uncle. His uncle.
This was it. His uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Now that I think about it, you're right. But that song is such a powerful song. I mean, you really evoke so much emotion in that. I mean, you can see that it's like a movie. You know, you just see that. I can see it. I should say. I can't speak for everyone, but it's just a great song.
Thanks.
I love it. I mean, it really is one of the most powerful songs I've heard you do. Now, is that on? I know you have a new live album out, or it's your newest album.
The
Is it
most
on?
recent, and it is the opening track on that.
It is on that album, right? I couldn't
It's
remember.
not. It's not on any of the other recordings.
Right.
It's the opening track
So
on
that's
the
Live at Eddie's
extremely
Attic.
live at Eddie's
Right,
Attic. yeah.
gotcha. Well, let's do Extremely Live right here in Kennebunk and across Maine. And if you wouldn't mind, do that song for us.
Not at all. Let's do
All
it.
right, great. So this is What Else Could I Do, again with Don Conoscenti. on
Go to
Stay
Jen.
Tuned. Hope you like it.
Wire fences along the prairie, wooden crosses along the road, gray white father and all his soldiers made ghosts of the buffalo. I tell the young ones, keep to the old ways. They say those are easy words for you. I signed treaties, betrayed my people. Yeah, but what else could I do? They killed my son, stole my woman, burned the lodges, took our food, ball and chain around my ankles. Yeah, but what else could I do? My dear grandson, my sweet granddaughter, yes, I'm old, my days so few. And if the lives of all your people were in your hands, what would you do? My dear grandson, my sweet granddaughter, yes, I'm old, my days so few. And if the lives of all your people were in your hands, what would you do? Iron horses down in the valley, silver birds up in the blue. I signed papers to save my people. Hey, what else could I do? What else could I do? What else could I do? What else could I do?
That was What Else Could I Do? Again, Don Conoscenti. Thank you. That was fabulous.
Thanks.
What a great way to start the show. What else do we want to talk about? Is there anything in particular you definitely want to talk about in this show? I have a whole list of questions, but I'd rather just start with what have you been up to? Let's do that.
You know what? I've been shooting a lot of pictures.
Oh, yeah? Good, yeah.
Because like you were saying earlier, you know, about you could see when you listen to the song, you sort of see it play out. It's very cinematic to me, the whole thing, and my interest in film. And I'm not really in a position to like be making films or have the time or the resources to do that, but I can take pictures because I'm going to these places in search of these myths and these people and the stories and the trails that they walked in. I'm taking photographs. I'm taking digital photographs, and I've been trying to show those to people and share them with because some of them are literally the images from these stories, and others of them are images that inspired stories and that inspired me. And so it's been pretty interesting, and people can see those at my website. And I'm also doing a couple of exhibits.
Really?
Yeah,
Whereabouts?
coming up. I'm doing one in Chicago in July, and it'll open on July 7th. I'll do a reception at a place called the Uncommon Ground Cafe on the north side of Chicago, and then another one in my little town that I reside in when I'm there,
Nice.
Alamos, Colorado, in middle of August.
That's great. That's fantastic. I've actually seen some of those, and I'm not sure if we can do it, but hopefully we can, if you don't mind, throw some of those pictures up. You know,
That'd be
just
great.
Throw
I
them
love
up on
to
the
share them
screen.
with people. And I'm making frames. I'm doing handmade
Oh, really?
mosaic frames.
Now, have you? I'm gonna get off the subject here, but speaking of mosaics, I've been really interested in doing mosaics. Now, how long have you been doing that? Or is it
A few weeks.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, like everything else, these ideas,
Yeah,
they just sort
just
of
come to you.
like come, and then it's like they show up and you got to run with it,
Right.
And there's a condensed amount of time. The idea to do the photo exhibit came up last year in the fall, and then as the date approached, the means of how I would present these images, just kept transforming, and I just had to throw myself in it and come up with something that seemed to fit, and it conveyed the spirit of the thing.
So are there pictures of what are you focusing on a certain area of the country? Or are you
For this, yeah, I am. I mean, I've been shooting coast to coast, and I'm shooting pictures this trip here in New England and in Maine. But this will be primarily Southwest. I'll kind of stick to vistas and mountains and holy places that seem to call me out. And I also have a lot of urban photography that I've been shooting in New York and Chicago, and it'll be interesting to see if I get the opportunity to package more images together and do another thing like this. It'll be interesting to move from theme to theme.
Now, when you said that certain areas inspire the music that you do, is it do the images inspire the songs for you, or do the images inspire stories that someone tells you, or how do most of your songs come?
Well, it's a
Or is
mix.
it-
It's a mix of all of those things, and I may be inspired by a location and go out, and maybe sleep out there, camp for a couple of days, and then things will come to mind, or sounds, or I'll be triggered, especially with the Western landscapes. And then a character may come to mind, and I may send that character through that area and then create a story, about maybe a river or a mountain range or a town, and there'll be some occurrence that'll happen, and that character will play that out in a song. And that happens often. And I try to write about other people than myself. I don't write that much about myself anymore.
Yeah,
But my experience will inform the character study, so to speak.
gotcha.
So.
Do you do any writing other than songwriting?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I write a lot, just snippets of things, but I haven't sat down and tried to write a novel or I have written some short stories, and I've written some poems, and I've got about 35, 40 poems put together that I've been meaning to put a book out. And it was almost ready to release about a year and a half ago, and then I sort of let it go and got busy with other things. But it's just about pretty much
Almost
ready to
done, yeah.
throw
Just
together.
ready
I
to
mean,
pack,
they're edited and they're pretty much ready to go.
Nice. All on the are there certain subjects, or is that just a wide range of subjects, or is it?
No, it's a
certain
mix of
field
things.
yeah.
I've been writing since I was about 19. I've been writing this stuff, and I've got things that go back to 1974, 75, and I've just been
That'd be
dragging
great,
them along with
yeah.
me,
I hope you do put that out. That'd be nice.
That'd be fun.
I know that would be. You'd be the second singer-songwriter I know that put out a book, because I know Ellis put out a book recently.
He beat me to it. I actually was supposed to have
Was it
mine
your
out
idea
before
first,
his.
and then he stole it? And how he is.
That's quite possible, actually, because he was going to do illustrations for my poetry
really?
book, and he never got it together. Next thing I know, he's releasing his own
Yeah, I was
poetry
like,
book.
oh,
Now I
darn,
know
I've
why.
already got my own book, right? Yeah.
You held me up to stall
That's
so
right.
you could get yours out first. And I love his book. It's fantastic.
I love Ellis. He's the greatest. He's another Maine boy for all you guys out there that may not know him. If you don't know him, you're living under a rock. But
Which
and those
might be
people
all
are-
right.
Exactly,
which
right.
can't,
What's
it's
wrong
not
with
all
living
bad.
under a rock, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to another song. And I want to, actually, if you don't mind, I'll ask you to this song, Truth Is.
which is a story, which was
is a great
inspired by a
story.
place,
Yeah.
but more of a scenario. And I was living in Oklahoma City at the time, hanging out at this cafe, and the idea came based upon, you know, hanging out in these cafes and seeing hanging out with the waiters and the waitresses, basically, you know, and talking to them and getting their stories. And then I did fuse an experience of my own with a woman that I was just head over heels in love with, and she let me go. But I enjoy always looking at those situations and trying to make light of it.
Mm.
And, you know, people break up and then it's like disaster.
That's it.
Why? Why does it have to be a disaster? You know, you're in love and you become friends. Why don't you stay friends? So the idea in this song is that the guy is a waiter in a cafe and he breaks up with his girlfriend and she comes in every day for lunch and tortures him. You know, it's just like, get over it, you know? Just get over it. We're going to be friends, and this is how I guess I'm going to have to do it to get you to come around. I'm just going to come in here and bug you every day for lunch.
That's a great song. And that line, "You're nothing but a pain in my past." I love that line for some reason.
It's fun. It's fun when to sing because people are wondering, oh, what's it? Oh.
And it's a great album. So if you don't mind, we'll do that now. We'll come back and maybe talk about that album.
Great, let's do it.
Okay, this Truth Is again. Don Conoscenti.
Do you know the truth that she is? I said the truth is you're nothing but a pain in my past. You pick my table every day. You make a mess and refuse to pay. I've got other customers. I don't work here just for you. Guess what she said? I just bought this place. Good for you, I said, but you're still paying. Every day this is what I get. You torture me without regret. I'm gonna charge you double to cover your lack of respect. Truth is, baby, I still love you. Even though it broke my heart, I still think you're a work of art. Do you know the time she asked? I said it's 1:30. You behave yourself. She threw a napkin across the room. I said thanks for helping. Come back soon. Even though no doubt you are the world's worst customer. Truth is, baby, I still love you. Even though it broke my heart, I still think you're a work of art. Truth is, baby, I still love you. Even though it broke my heart, I still think you're a work of art. Truth is.
All right, that was Truth Is. Again, nice song. Thank you. And I really love that the album that song is on, Mysterious Light. Great album.
Thanks.
You know, I mean, that was how I was introduced to your music, actually.
That was a sweet experience for me.
Really.
That was very nice. It was an easy record to make. It was at the end of a long string of performances, and I was really at one with the material in this wonderful studio that I had discovered, and I've become best friends with John Kurgan, who recorded it. And we set it up basically, even though we had the whole studio to use, we set it up in a large living room area with a few microphones and looking out the window onto the lake that his house sits on the edge of. And we had about 5 days to record. We used a day. We were done.
No kidding.
We were done. And we were just like,
that's
now what do
amazing,
we
actually.
do? You
Yeah.
know, well, let's go out and eat, you know. And then we
that's
did a
awesome.
little bit of tweaking and mixing it just to play with ideas of how to present them. But I basically sat down with the
Excuse me.
guitar and sang the songs.
Yeah.
And then did a couple of solo piano pieces. And at the end of the record, I wanted to sort of prime the pump, because I knew that, you know, I've done like 2-3 solo acoustic records more or less live, either in a cafe or a venue or in the studio live in front of the microphones. So I put that song, which was a demo,
Right,
the
that was
produced
the last
demo
song,
that I
bonus
had
track, yeah.
done with Neil Eckstein up in Massachusetts outside of Boston, and put that at the end of the record just to sort of give people a
Ready.
taste of what was coming next,
Uh-huh.
because I knew the next album would be more produced in
Right.
that way.
And I do want to get into that in the next album, Paradise of Grace, which is another great album. But you're right, it does. It's a switch to the right or left, however you want to do it, right? And not only musically, but sort of the whole concept visually. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but when you look at it, you go, wonder what he's trying to say here. But to get back to the Mysterious Light for just a second, because I just want to comment on that and about how I come to know your music. Excuse me. Was I had never heard of you before, and I actually had gotten that album, and it was one of those. There's very few times that I get this, which I love. So I just really want to edify you in your process. But there's very few times that I fall in love with an album, and when I heard that, I was like, just completely blown away, and I was like, wow, why haven't I heard of this guy for one? Because I just thought it was amazing, and it was I just loved it. So I guess I'm just reinforcing that on there. And to all you people out there, great album. All your albums are great, though. I mean, I think you're a great songwriter, but that one in particular really caught me. So,
Well,
thanks.
I think
Thanks
a
for
lot of
doing that.
elements came together,
Yeah.
and they do. You know, you hope that every recording, and I've done like 10, 11 albums, that every recording, you know, you fuse more elements and bring it out, and I felt really good.
There's
about that
a
album.
feel in that album that has there's sort of a mixture of, well, the truth is too, you can look at that song either way, as you know, from the point of view of her or him, and the feelings that come up with it. You know, it's kind of like a struggle between the hope and the despair almost. And in that album, there's a lot of songs of hope and love. And there's a couple of songs like An Hour Texting a Canner. That's on that album, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is a brilliant album. Did you read that? Was that song? Which song? No, Jim Brown is Pierce Pettis' song.
Pierce
right?
Pettis,
Right, which
and
is
that's
another great
included on
song.
that record. Yeah.
But The Hour Texts I Canner, that's a pretty sad song. But it really, I mean, it flows together. The whole album, you know, usually sometimes that'll either turn an album to a certain degree where it's almost unlistenable after that, the rest of it, because the emotions change. For me, anyway. I'm an emotional listener when I listen to music.
Oh, that's nice.
So, anyway.
Good for us
Yeah.
that people are listening like
Yeah,
that.
so,
All the songs on that album are about letting go, are about surrender and release, and transformation, and they're all story songs. And there's no autobiographical thing. Although you be sure I've been through all those things, with the exception of Hour in Texarkana, which takes a real nosedive in terms of the circumstances that occur.
absolutely, yeah.
But that song is about compassion,
Mhm.
and it's about where the breakdown was that existed, where people did not transform, they didn't get past.
Right.
But the rest of them are basically like, you know, here's an alternative, here's a problem, here's a conflict, here's a separation of some sort, and here's the alternative.
Right. Just a different way to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't have to be stuck.
So
Which
opening doors and windows,
Right.
you know, into all these ways that people are with each other.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about Paradise of Grace for a second, actually, which is a follow-up album to Mysterious Light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually your last studio album.
Yeah.
Now, you said with Truth Is, you knew that it was going to switch over to a whole, you knew that it was going to switch and you were trying to warn, I guess, your fans. Is that the...
Yeah, pretty much, because, I think people get used to a certain thing from you, and I'm not on any kind of a large scale. I don't have a huge, massive audience, but I have a dedicated audience, and I don't want to shock them necessarily out of respect, if nothing else. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to do because the albums incubate, and they present themselves to me. And I knew I was going to do more of a band flavored album, and as I had done so many in the past.
Right.
I've had many bands, so a lot of people didn't know me that way. They knew me from these
just the
solo acoustic albums, and so I wanted to give them a heads up. And it took 2 years for that Paradox of Grace album to really figure itself out and let me know what it was going to be, and the textures and the approaches to it, and the songs were more of the easier part. What I was curious to see was, what's the theme? What's the glue that's holding us together? And what are the textures and the sounds that are going to be the vehicle for these themes?
So how did it inform you that's where it
Well, running around in the desert a whole bunch,
Yeah.
and more images and more photography, and collecting these songs and collecting instruments. A good friend of mine, Bill Ely, down in Texas, had spent some time in South America, and he gave me some panpipes. And then somebody else gave me a kabing, which is a tribal leader from the rainforest in the Philippines. And I'd been doing some music with him, and another Philippine friend of mine gave me this thing. And so that tied together. And then the artwork on the back, there's a painting of me that was done by who has become a great friend of mine, Lizette Ellis Reyes from New York, and she's a brilliant artist. And she introduced me to some jazz, musicians, and I thought, this is going to be, it's going to be part tribal, and it's going to be part jazz, and it's going to be some of the folk elements, that I've been exposed to, and Woody Guthrie and hanging out with the Guthries, and Oklahoma, and all these things in the desert where I lived came together. And people from all those areas contributed, whether it was the photography on the front cover, which was Ken Bird, this brilliant fashion photographer from Oklahoma City, who provided the portrait on the cover, which was very different. I'm like naked from the waist up,
Right.
and I thought, just whatever wants to be this album, it's going to be this album. And if this photograph wants to be on the back or the front cover in this painting, I'm going to let it be. And it's sort of, I don't know how people are going to react to it. It's just going to happen. And we definitely shook it up.
How have people reacted to it?
So people have been very positive.
Really? Cool.
Very positive. And some people were a little taken aback. But I think overall, anybody that had any negative thing to say has kind of kept it to themselves.
Really? Oh, that's good.
And it got a lot of airplay, and people love that album. And
That's cool.
And I love that album. I love that album a lot.
It's hard to say what are your, it's hard to ask an artist what's their favorite album, but would you say that is one of your favorite albums? Or
It's probably, of the studio albums, I would say that is my favorite album, because I got to really stretch out as a producer and play as a player. I play almost everything on that album.
Right.
And again, working with John Kurgan in his studio in Ringwood, New Jersey, it was another great experience.
Nice.
Working with him.
Excellent. Well, why don't we do a song off that album while we're talking?
Yeah, you want to do like the banjo tune?
Sure.
And it was so fun to use the banjo on
Picking
that
up other
album.
instruments, yeah.
So let's do that. This is the closing song, and it was a real sweet thing to do. And Ellis Paul sang. I saved the harmony vocals for Ellis, and he came in and did the whole album, and he and I sang a lot together.
You guys sound really good together, and there's actually the next song I want to have you do. I could not hear that song, even when you're doing it solo. I could not hear that song without hearing his voice in my head. When he's doing that, when he's doing that.
I know what song you're talking about too. Yeah.
But anyway, we'll go. The name of this song is "Beautiful Valley."
Beautiful Valley, about the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado, northern New Mexico.
Excellent. This is Beautiful Valley again. Don Conoscenti.
Beautiful valley, beautiful desert, San Mountains, sangres too. Me and this banjo, we're gonna pick a little music. We sure are happy to be here with you. There's a grand old river, it starts in the valley. It's telling its story everywhere it goes. It's sneaking past Taos, it's holding back Texas, it's jumping the border down into Mexico. And there's a big volcano down in Antonito, named after my father, and I sure like that. You could move away from Boulder or out to California, even New York City, but you keep coming back to the beautiful valley, the beautiful desert, San Juan Mountains, mysterious light. Me and this banjo, we're gonna pick a lot of music. We sure are happy to be here tonight. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to Manhattan Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. From the Pine Ridge Rest to the Cherokee Nation, San Carlos Apache Reservation, from the Taos Pueblo to the Hopi Mesas, this land, this land, this land.
Beautiful Valley. Thank you. Great song. I want to focus on another song on that album, and I want you to sing that next if you can. But I also, the reason I want it, it's a beautiful song, The Other Side. And again, that seems like a very powerful song. And I know that that's had a strong, that's had another whole life in itself.
Oh, yeah, it has.
And,
it's had a big life all unto itself.
Well, I want to talk about how the song came about, and I know it was on, what's the name of that show? John Edwards, is that?
Yeah, I got invited to come
What's
to
the
go
name of
perform it on Crossing Over with
Crossing
John
Over,
Edwards.
right, with John Edwards.
Just was so odd because I had a buddy out in San Jose, California named Paul Albanese, and he'd been saying, you know, there's this. I hadn't seen the show, and he kept saying, "It's perfect, your song. You got to get on that show." And I'm like, "Well, okay, whatever, you know, getting on a show. I mean, it's easily said and possibly done." And lo and behold, it just happened all by itself.
No kidding. So did you just send it in, or?
Not at all.
No.
Although I think that he actually emailed the program, and I was doing a radio after 9/11. That song got played a lot in a lot of places, and especially in New York City, and also in Houston. But I was invited to come in and do an interview on WFUV in New York. It was a great radio station and really widely listened to. And in that interview and performing that song, as it turns out, John Edwards' partner and co-producer Paul was in his car. He heard the interview, went to my website, www.donconoscenti.com,
Which will be up after. But
which is a fun website. It's a very
it is. It's a
interesting
great
website.
website. Yeah, I wish we had time to talk about that. We might, but
And at that time, I put that song on there as a free download,
Oh,
just
yeah.
because it was really useful to people,
Mhm.
and has been since. And he heard the song, and he went to John with the song, and they decided they wanted it on the program. They don't do music on the program. They
Yeah.
didn't before. They haven't since. It's not what they're about. But they felt like they really wanted to present that song to their audience.
Well, it's really what that whole show is about. I mean,
It was a
talking
pretty
to the
good
other
fit.
side,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
pretty
actually
good.
saw that show, and I've seen the show a couple of times, which is a very interesting program. I don't know if you've ever seen it out there, but it did fit really well. Now, I just want to talk about your beliefs in that. I mean, how did the song? Well, let me see. How do I want to do that? Let's just talk about your beliefs and the whole.
Well, there
other
were
side thing.
catalysts involved, and my beliefs certainly guided the story. And again, like that whole idea of letting go and being very open to life and things that occur in life and things that occur beyond life. That its existence is a big thing, And I try not to be too locked into my own belief system, both as a spiritual being and as a writer. I try to be very open, because the more I am against something, the less
Right.
objective I can be as a writer or as an observer. And I feel that way about being a human being too. So I've had a lot of interesting spiritual experiences and spiritual training, and I've studied quite a bit and made a point of continuing to study and look at life, look at the big picture. And so that's guided me as a writer as well. And this song came to me in the desert in New Mexico.
Mhm.
And there were some people that I met down around Alamogordo down near the border of Mexico. And it's a mysterious, beautiful area. And I met this couple, the Cadies, and they were pregnant at the time, and they moved from that area to Kansas City, and I heard from them that they'd had this child, a little boy named Jack, and Jack stayed 9 days and left. And I was moved by the story, and I think that the song really was Jack, because the working title of the song was Jack Went Back
Oh yeah.
for a while, so I suspect that Jack had something to do with it. And the poem came, and it was one of those things where I was driving, and it just kind of plopped down through the roof of the vehicle and into my head and out through my hands, and it was a 20-minute
No kidding.
thing, maybe a
Yeah.
couple erasures, and whatever I did, I probably did back again.
Mhm.
A few weeks later, I was in Boston to perform, and I was staying at Ellis Paul's place, as I often do in Boston. And we went out to celebrate the release of a live record that he did, that I helped him out with. And when he went to bed, I ended up sitting down with this steel guitar of mine, and music came out. A few hours later, I performed it on a couple of radio interviews in Boston. That night, I played in a club and performed it, and it's been every night since.
Really? Yeah.
So the song really was, I'd been thinking about writing that song for about 2 years, especially after reading a book by Ram Dass about death. And here it came,
Mhm.
and it's been a very busy song since.
Absolutely, it has definitely had life, and I know that it would serve. I used to be speaking of Ram Dass, I know he works with the dying, generally the elderly and the people that are dying. But I worked as a grief counselor up in Portland, and actually the song came out after I had left there. But it just seems like a song that would just serve all those people, or anyone actually that has, if you've experienced a loss. It's just such a comforting song in that sense. Some people, I mean, you may not believe in that, some people may not, but it's like it's not permanent, whatever. And it's just a gift, I think. So I liked it.
Well, it was a gift to me, and
So
it's
thanks,
been
Jack,
useful.
yeah.
Thanks, Jack, and thank you to the Cadies, and thank you to Spirit and all that is, and however you look at God or Goddess, it has provided a great amount of comfort to lots of people, and I hear from them, and I hear their stories, and they're gut-wrenching, and they're beautiful.
Have any other songs had that kind of emotional impact on people where they're, probably not to that degree, because I know
Not to that
one,
degree,
yeah,
but
that's-
yes, but not to that degree. That really
that one really spiked,
topped
yeah,
out.
yeah. And it was a timing thing too, really, right? do you think?
It came, about a year or so before 9/11,
Did it? Yeah.
and I just didn't feel like my own personal choice. I just didn't feel it was appropriate for me as an artist to write a song about that event, and some artists chose to and did. I just didn't feel that I wanted to,
Right.
and that song was
Well, that
already
song
in the
fits,
world and
right,
could
yeah.
serve that purpose,
Absolutely.
easily, and it did. So.
And I've heard some great songs. Lucy Kaplinsky does a fabulous song about that event.
Of all the songs about
I
that
think
event,
that's
I
the best
do
one.
really appreciate
Yeah.
Lucy's
Yeah.
song.
Well, she's there. She was
She
there.
was
yeah,
there.
So, but anyway, I just wanted to. We're gonna go out with that song, if you don't mind. That'll play
I'd
us
be
out.
happy to play it.
But I wanted to just ask you to, before we go, how is it? I know you're a spiritual person. How is it to be? You're on the road a lot. You travel a bunch, and it seems like it would be. I mean, I find it hard to connect with spirit on my own, just my own little world around here, and I'm not traveling. It just seems like it would be difficult to do, and I'm not sure if it would be more difficult or not. As it is kind of a solitudinal existence you have at times.
And it, to be honest with you, it helps
Really?
that I'm traveling alone, that I spend so much time alone. It helps. And if you stay on track, I'm disciplined, and I've been trained in very disciplined arts, in martial arts and spiritual arts, and even in high school. I mean, as a wrestler, it was tough. And so, in maintaining a certain level of discipline and keeping a certain structure, then the rest of it can be free. And I like it all.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason that I didn't go further into like monastic training or studies is because I like it all.
Yeah.
And I see that in moderation, all things are benefit from being inclusive. So I found my way, of taking bits and pieces of everything and synthesizing them.
Bringing it all together. Yeah.
Apply a certain amount of discipline, and after that, quite a bit of liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's about experience and being conscious, and really, that's
try
what
to
it
be
sounds
mindful about all, whether it's being out for the night drinking with friends and getting wild, or whether it's like really focusing, or it's listening to the ancestors, or listening to spirit out in the natural world. Spend a lot of time in nature. It helps immensely.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm running around Manhattan or Detroit or LA, I carry it with me. I keep it in my pocket.
like. Cool. Well, that's a great way to end this, actually. Just wanted to ask you that question. It's always nice to hear other people's views on that. So thank you. It's been wonderful actually having you on the show.
Likewise.
Yeah,
It's great to see you and to be in this part of the
Yeah,
world. Thanks
great.
for having me.
It's a blessing to us for sure. So I'll ask you to go out with The Other Side, and just want to say thanks to everyone out there. Thanks for tuning in. Again, this is Don Conoscenti. Continue to tune in. We'll always have great artists, and I hope you like this last song. It's The Other Side. And until the next time I see you, I just want to say thanks and stay tuned. Take care.
I'm over on the other side, where life and death softly divide. I left my skin and bones behind. Now I'm over on the other side. Can you feel me there with you? My breath is gone, but I'm not through. Love you then, and I still do. From over on the other side, I can fly, really fly, below the earth, all through the sky. Tell them all I did not die. other side. The sweetest songs, bluest skies. Thank you for the tears you cried, but it's good here on the other side. I can fly, really fly, below the earth, all through the sky. Tell them all I did not die. I'm just over on the other side. The world is smaller than a needle's eye, where life and death softly divide. When you leave your skin and bones behind, I will